Hey everyone, welcome to the Crypto Beach. Today we've got Courtney. She's going to share a little bit about how she got into crypto, some tips for newbies and trends that she's really excited about. She's an artist and has a lot of input related to NFTs. But before we get started, she's going to introduce herself. So go right ahead, Courtney. Take it
Perfect.
away.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So I guess I'll begin that I'm Courtney, also known as Cordell Designs. I'm a self-taught multidisciplinary artist. I enjoy creating abstract art as well as digital illustration. You could see in my digital illustration some form of my abstract forms of expression in there. And so really what I like to create is feminine, ethereal, dreamy sort of pieces, borderline psychedelic pieces. And that's pretty much my jam. But yeah, I've been in the NFT space for, I would say 2 months now. It's been 2 months, but it's been quite a journey in these 2 months, and we can get into that in a second.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, so we're diving now. I mean, you got into NFTs. Was that your first time in crypto? And if not, how was it during your first time in crypto?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm not new to crypto. I've actually been in the crypto space since 2016. I was with a partner at the time, and he was all about Bitcoin. And for me, I knew nothing, but it was almost like that FOMO. So I was like, okay, well, let's get into this. So I decided to invest with my father at the time, and we invested a couple of thousand in Bitcoin and some altcoins such as Litecoin as well as Cardano. And so, in hindsight, I wish we would have picked Ethereum over Litecoin, but we didn't know what we were doing at the time, just that, maybe we should invest in something. So for us, it was sort of like with all investments for me, actually, it's that out of sight, out of mind. So, there was the potential loss. So we kind of just invested a couple thousand and hope for the best. And so that being said, when we did, it was when Bitcoin was at its all-time high back in 2016. And then a few weeks later after we invested, it dropped and we lost all of our money. So, we also went in knowing that it was going to be a buy and hold scenario. So we were just hoping, all right, well, out of sight, out of mind, and hopefully in a few years we'll gain back our profits or get a profit, I would say. And so, fast forward to 2020 when Bitcoin was at its all-time high, we made profit and doubled our profit and then some, especially with Bitcoin as well as some of our altcoins as well. And yeah, that's how I got into crypto. So, so now moving on to the NFTs. So like I said, I'm a self-taught multidisciplinary artist. And back in December 2020 was when I really reignited my passion for painting. And so I actually met who you actually interviewed by the name of Crown and Palette, also known as Andrea, on a Facebook group back in December 2020. And we were at the time, we were just doing mixed media art. Like I said, I was into abstract art. So we connected on Facebook and we were discussing how to resin coasters. And that's how we connected on Facebook.
Oh, nice.
So, we became friends. She's also in Canada, and I had the opportunity to meet Andrea in July of 2021. And by then, she was in the NFT space since March 2021. So we met up. She was sharing her successes in the NFT space, but I wasn't ready at the time to pivot because I invested so much money in my mixed media art that I was like, no, let me just put my head down in my art and just focus on that. So that being said, she was successful. I was close to her. She was sharing her successes. And then in October of 2021, we met up again, and we were having sushi, and she was, sharing her successes again. And she opened up her OpenSea wallet, and there's this piece of art by Chiara Moreni that just caught my eye. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy that. I'm just going to collect. So I ended up that night going home, setting up my MetaMask wallet, and then collecting that piece. And then about a week later, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get into my digital art and get into the NFT space. And the rest is history. It's close to 2022, and I've seen success, and I'll get into that in a little bit of how I've been so successful at such an early stage. But that's been my journey. It's been quite a journey, like I said.
Wow, that sounds very thrilling, and it's I'm happy to hear that you've actualized success. What are some tips for people who are coming into this space, and how to navigate the expectations,
Yeah, for sure. I have 3 big tips to share. And my first, I'll start with building community and, gathering your support system. I think that's key. And I actually think that is why, I've gained success at such an early stage, because for me, like I truly love art. So part of my journey too is just like, I love scrolling on Twitter and looking at people's art and retweeting and sharing. And by that, I was able to build those authentic and genuine connections. So for me, like, I'm a big advocate for building your support system and building your community. And, if you think about it too, it's a good way from a marketing perspective to get that organic outreach. Because if you're really, really authentically building connection and showing your support, then your supporters also want to share your work as well. So it comes back tenfold. So, it's a big thing for me to build community. And like, when I keep on saying build community, it's not just, using hashtag NFT community. It's truly gaining and building those connections. So, and that's how really like I give gratitude to the success in my sales just by building that support system at such an early stage. I didn't know my collectors, but they turned out to be part of my community. That's how I found them. And, with that in mind, you never know where your collector is within that community. If like one of your supporters is sharing their work, your collector might be in their network. So that's my main tip, build community. I would say my second tip is take care of your mental health. The NFT space, like it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. There will be ups and downs. I'm hitting personally a dry spell where I'm not getting sales, but I understand patience is key and networking is key, building that community. And, if you think about it too, a lot of artists out there, they're not full-time artists. They're just striving to be full-time artists. So with that, you have to find balance. You have to find balance in working your full-time job, networking on Twitter, having time to do art, and even having time for your personal life. So,
yeah.
With that, it can be very draining for your energy. So, it's easy to have that FOMO. I get it, because, I sometimes get that fear of missing out, but taking care of your mental health is key. Going back to your community, don't be afraid to take a couple of days or even a week or however long you need to kind of get that energy back. And don't be afraid about leaving the Twitter space, because your real supporters will be there and standing behind you when you get back. So I'm a big advocate for mental health, and I know that the NFT space can sometimes be draining and taxing. So that would be my second tip. And then I'll say my third tip would be join Twitter spaces. At an early stage, I was in Twitter spaces, not to shill, because I'm not one to shill. I don't like public speaking, but I just found them as a good source of information. There's so many Twitter spaces that you give valuable information to newcomers that are trying to navigate the space. even for me, like I love just putting on Twitter Spaces and listening in while I'm working. There's so much information, and there's times when like some Twitter Spaces are just, they're very warm and safe. So, you know, if you feel up to sharing your project or just even asking questions, it's a very welcoming space, most Twitter Spaces. So I would say go for it. But Twitter Spaces are another great resource for newcomers in the space.
Okay. Oh, thanks so much for those tips.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, you know, one thing I'm curious about, you had mentioned that you're now seeing sales, at least this year, you've probably seen sales. What do those numbers look like in the real world for an artist who might be trying to figure out, hey, look, I'd like to go full-time doing this, but I don't know how much I need to get there, or, you know, how to set targets?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think it really depends on everyone's personal situation. I mean, and their personal income to begin with. Like for me personally, I'll say I have a very good job. And for me, in order to be able to replace my income that I make with my full-time job, I would have to make a lot of sales, and it would have to be steady. And I understand that. So like for me personally, I know that, you know, this is going to be a long journey for me. And I'm, you know, working on building my network, building relationships. But, you know, again, going back to it being a unique situation for everyone, if somebody is working a job that they dislike, they can't stand logging in or going into work every day, and they start to see momentum in NFTs, it may very well be the confidence for them to take that leap and go into the NFT space full time. So I really think it is dependent on the person and their comfort levels, and you know, just the risk that they're willing to take too. I mean, this, sorry, no, it's okay. I just want to say, like, this space is so new and it's still evolving. But I've seen, like, in spaces, people, you know, saying that they've paid off their debt, their sales have been life-changing, and, you know, I'm happy for them. I truly am, because I think that's what we all want, is to, you know, do something that we truly enjoy doing.
Okay. Would like to know. Yeah, it kind of got away from me and I caught it. Okay.
No worries. That happens to me a lot.
Yeah. So, you know, talk to us a little bit about tactically what building community looks like. I know you described getting Twitter Spaces, having conversations, maybe kind of sharing other people's work. But what does that look like, you know, on a more kind of like tactical basis? So, you know, what actions are taken? So it's just more actionable for the audience who might want to like take action. They're like, hey, but I feel like, you know, I do the hashtags and I message people, but I'm still not building communities. So there's that piece of it. That's the question number one. And then question number two piggybacks off that. And it has to do with collaborations and what you think about those artists collaborating together to release pieces.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll go back to saying, like, for me, building community is more than just doing like the hashtag NFT community. So when you think of tactics, like for me, you know, I like to break up my time spent, you know, scrolling on Twitter, and knowing like I have a core group of connections that I built at an early stage. And so I make it a priority to make sure that I'm, you know, seeing what they're doing, I'm sharing, I'm commenting. Sometimes I'll have a full-on conversation in a Twitter thread just with a fellow artist friend that I built a connection with. You know, it's just something that I like personally doing. And, you know, I'll say, for example, like one of my sales too came from somebody that I built a connection with. And I honestly, I was not expecting that. But what I do know is that prior to that sale, what I did was I truly loved her work. So I would always be commenting and sharing it because I loved her work. It was vibrant, it was bold. I'm a fan of, bright colors. So for me, it was just doing something that I enjoy. I value people's art. So, just retweeting, commenting, and just even having, conversations via thread. That to me is building community. And then, there's also those art trains too. I know some people aren't into art trains and they find them annoying, but then there's some of my connections that do enjoy art trains. So, I pick up on, my friends that do enjoy sharing their work in those trains, and I'll participate in the art trains, share my work, and then I'll tag artists that I know also enjoy sharing them. And that's also, part of my way of building, that community and us all sharing our work. In terms of Discord, like, I know some people are just into Discord. To be honest, like, I'm not in a lot of Discords. There's actually one Discord that I do participate in, and that's Chester Labs. And I only participate in them because they have some great programs. And, this is my plug for Chester Labs. If you're interested in really like being involved in a community and in a company that has certain initiatives for artists, this is a great Discord to be in for sure. And then I think your second question was about collabs.
Yep.
So on that note, I'll be honest, I haven't participated in any collabs. I know I'll plug my good friend Andrea, Crown and Palette. She has many collabs. But I think for me personally, like, I think they're great because I do think that they're a win-win for both artists. And if there's a way for like two talented artists to get together and put their own spark in a piece, I think that's awesome. For me personally, I'm still trying to find my groove and my true style, my go-to style, before I actually decide to do any collab. So that's just a personal thing for me, but I do find it as a way to be a win-win for all parties.
Okay, nice. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, that was a longer question. I had to have some water.
You had me talking. You did. I need my water.
That's my job. It's good to hear I'm doing it well. So on the topic of trends, what trends are you really excited about?
Sure.
Yeah.
So before I get into trends, I don't necessarily consider it a trend, but I think it's something that we should bring attention to. And, that's just the fact of me advocating for more women in the NFT space.
Yeah.
Women entrepreneurs were already faced with challenges outside of the metaverse. And I think the pandemic really exacerbated that. So, there was data saying that only 16% of NFT sales over the course of 21 months attributed to female artists. And, I find that sad. And if you think about it, the NFT space, it's basically art and tech combined together. So art is a male dominated industry, and so is the tech sector. So, right there, women are facing an uphill battle. And so, I really encourage both men and women working together to move the dial and to uplift and empower more women in the space. I think, it's a joint effort. And so for me personally, like, I personally want to invest in more women, and that is one of my goals once I do have a steady influx of sales in the NFT space. But, again, I think it's both men and women coming together to really uplift and support and bring more women in this space. So I just want to put that out there because I do think it's very important and it does need to be acknowledged. So, that was where I don't consider it a trend, but I consider it, kind of relating to that question. But yeah, on the trend note, I find the whole AI art fascinating, the artificial intelligence art, because for me, like I find the work beautiful because it has like that form of abstract. And like I said, I'm a big fan of abstract work. But on the other side, it's also it's interesting because there's a polarity in views of whether, it's own, is it the artist or is it the machine? So like it's just interesting to see how the AI art will evolve, and especially how it will play a role in the NFT space. And I myself, like, I'm even interested in, like, I only did a little bit of research into that type of art, but like, I'm just thinking too, like, is it a way to like start something and then me put my own personal spark on top of it? So I do find that trend fascinating. And then at the same time, I think the AI art is also a way for like the NFT space to be inclusive and accessible, because if you think about it, there's some people that, they cannot paint or do art in the traditional ways. So this may be a way for, the NFT space to be inclusive for everyone, for people with disabilities, whatever it may be. But I think, it would be interesting to see how AI art plays a role in this space for sure. And I just, like I said, I find it pretty.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, that's really something that hasn't been covered, the AI generative art piece of
Yes.
things. And you're right, it is a big trend. You know, it's really interesting to see how technology is being used to improve just the whole experience of selling art, and then to see the technology also be used to generate the art differently. That actually it's super interesting. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I find it interesting, and at the same time, like, I do find the views on it interesting, because I mean, it is based on algorithms, but then it's the machine outputting, but then at the same time it's a human that's also directing and, inputting certain, I don't even know what you want to call it, like just inputting certain directions to get the output. So I just find that fascinating because, in a way, I personally think it's us that's guiding the output. Yes, some of it's based on databases, but like from my understanding, you can keep on iterating and iterating until it turns into something that you want. So I just find the whole concept fascinating, and it's something that, I would love to explore myself, but I only have so many hours in a day to balance between
yeah,
my full-time job and my art and then networking and building communities. So
yeah.
I'll get to it eventually.
Definitely, definitely. Well, are you seeing that the AI generated art is performing better than the other arts work, or?
I wouldn't say performing better, but I am seeing some in my network actually being successful with it. So there's definitely that. I've also, I'm not sure if it was somewhere I read or something, or maybe it was a video, but I also saw artists, like I said, building on top of that AI work and using it as a foundation. So I thought that was pretty cool too, because like for
Yeah,
me personally, as an artist, like, I'm inspired by so many images and references and stuff. And I think that's just the nature of everyone. We're always inspired by something. So like, for me, like I would love to, maybe get an output, but then like it sparks some idea and build off of that too. Cause a lot of the way like I paint or I do digital illustration is intuitively. So I have a rough idea, but then at the end of it, it could go any direction. It's really what I feel, where I want to go at the time that I'm actually working on something. So yeah.
mhm. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of open to trying new things.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. All
Yep.
right. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing your story of how you got into crypto, and the tips were great, especially understanding the trends and how you relate to them. I do think it's very startling that 6%, 5 to 6% of sales you know, on OpenSea is coming, you know, coming to women artists. That's a bit alarming. But I also see you and you coming on here and talking about it. I know the first step to any change is bringing awareness to
Yep.
it. So that definitely bodes well.
Yes, and if you don't mind, I just would like to put a plug in for my
Oh, go
own
for
Twitter
it.
Spaces. Awesome. Well, thank
Go
you.
for it.
So first off, I do want to say thank you so much for having me. It's been
Yeah,
great. And
definitely.
also what you're doing for the community is great. So keep on doing it. I'm excited to, like, I listen to your interviews with different artists. So it's great what you're doing. So I just want to say that. But you know, like I said, your podcasts, they're great for their valuable resources. And I'll go back to the Twitter Spaces as well. You know, I am also hosting bi-weekly Twitter Spaces with my personal friend who also is an artist, Crypto M's. So we host these bi-weekly Twitter Spaces, and they're called Real Talk NFTs. And it's
Okay.
really, our goal is to connect successful artists or people that are really making a difference. So, you know, maybe
Oh, nice.
we'll
Nice.
have you on for a spotlight.
Oh, that'd be cool. I'm
Well,
happy to jump on.
the tables will turn, but basically our goal, like I said, is to be, you know, to do a Q&A style, interview style spotlight and really bridge the gap between people who are making a difference and successful artists with newcomers. So yeah, if you guys are interested in that space, it's we try to curate great artists and great community members and do a interview style. And so just follow me on Twitter and I'll be marketing them as they come along. But they're great resources for sure. And
All
who
right.
knows, you may see Crypto Beach on it soon.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely gonna drop all that information in the description, so there'll be
Awesome.
details for everybody who's watching. I pop in there occasionally, but I would love to come on there. You know that. So anytime Crypto Beach is down, you know. So yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. I think I got cut off at the end, but it still went for you. So I'm glad we were able to stay connected fully.
Yeah, yeah, cool, cool.